This is Lolanda coming to you live today from our Back to Eden Urban Garden. But more importantly, I want to talk to you today about homesteading and just what your feelings are about homesteading. I'm out in my garden today and I'm doing some transplants, so I'm going to be working, talking with you, breaking, but I really want to, at the end, get your feedback on how do you feel about this and see if this could be something that's important to you in your life. Well, today I'm transplanting some plants, and homesteading is not something that you just take lightly. I started this mission probably as a little girl because I grew up with a family that was self-sufficient here in Las Vegas, Nevada. And so growing up on a farm, we actually had that, believe it or not, in what they call Sin City, Las Vegas. There was a part of Las Vegas that was rural. And I lived in that rural area right in the city, and it was a normal thing to have a garden. It was a normal thing to have animals and to care for them and to tend to them and actually be able to take care of them as children and let them be a source of food. So this is not something that's not familiar to me and my husband. So we both came from different backgrounds. We both love this field. So the minute that I became an adult, that was something that I wanted to continue to engage in. And since I became an adult and an older adult, it's something that's been leading my life and also saving it, by the way. And I'm going to talk about that in another video. But today, really, I want to just talk to you about homesteading and the importance of it. It seems like it could be overwhelming, but you don't have to do everything at once. There's a beginning, there's a mid portion, and then there's the finale. And I'm going to talk about the beginning of just things that you can do to prep yourself, to think about, just like I'm prepping the soil. I'm adding in a few ingredients. I have some earthworm castings. We have a meal that processes all of our food to make us more sustainable, and that's what's in this container. And these are some of the combinations that we use to make a soil. So all of these things work together. As the scripture would tell us, all things work together for the good for those who love Yahshua and is called to his will and purpose. That's the way that I look and view our life plan. You know, now this bed was filled with sweet potatoes 2 weeks ago. So we pulled those out, and now this soil is being prepped for another generation of some transplants that I'm taking that have been growing up in another box, and I'm going to be moving them over here. But I liken this to our life. We grow up and we think things are important, and we put together so many things, and then we decide that, maybe we need to add a little bit more. And I think right now, at the point where we're at with the Project 2025, we're all in a turmoil about what's going to happen. Why are we waiting for something to happen when you can take action yourself right now? Self-sufficiency is for you, me, and it's for everyone. I know that my bills are not going down. I don't know about yours, but our bills are not going down every day. Groceries are higher. And the most scariest thing is that the FDA and whoever else is involved, the pharmacies, they don't have an answer for you. Everything is poison. Everything, there's a E. coli breakout in the carrots. There's this. But if you're taking care of yourself, that's part of self-sufficiency. That's you taking care of you. If you know where your fruits and vegetables come from, your herbs, isn't that a lot of weight that can be taken off? And that's what I want to talk about. Weight being taken off. I love coming out here to get whatever I need, my teas, my medicine. I have that. My greens, my vegetables. There are so many levels of what I can do. And I'm right here in the city. We call this urban homesteading. So whether you're in an apartment, whether you're in a home, whether you're in a condo, whether you're in you might be in a facility that's shared facility, as they call them, senior homes or whatever. They have gardens. We have to get busy. There's kitchen gardens. There's so many things that you can do, and so many ways that you can start saying, I'm going to be a little bit more self-reliant. People are getting solar panels. There are lots of ideals, lots of things to do, but starting slow and making that one step a priority, that would be something that I would begin in. And I would probably sit down and write it down and say, you know what are my goals this year? If I'm going to eat a little bit better, where can I start? If I plan on eating better, that means I have to source better food. So if that's the case, where would I start at? Would I be interested in regular seeds? Do you know the difference between good seeds and bad seeds? There's GMOs, there's hybrids, there are heirlooms. There's so much to go into that. So there's an education that we have to follow and understand that if you're going to get rooted in the situation, you have to get the education. And that can be a long process or a short process, but it's important to get that done because you won't know when it's time to uproot yourself and to get into another situation like I'm uprooting these plants because they do have enough of a root system. It's cool enough out here that they're not going to go into shock. But I didn't have to buy these from someone. I grew these from seed. And now it's the time for me to transplant. You know, someone was saying, oh, your garden is bare for the winter. It's not bare because we planted ample seeds and they were going to have to be thinned out. But this is called a no waste method. I'm not wasting anything because now I'm putting them in fresh soil that's been totally re-energized with the worm castings and all of the scraps, as well as there are other liquid organic fertilizers that have been mixed together in the soil. So this is going to be part of the winter garden. And this winter garden is going to get covered. We have like a hoop house coming. And this, when I said a hoop house, is something that's just being made to be constructed over this whole area, which we do every year. So our first little tunnel house right now, and you can see all of the beautiful foliage. Everything is doing really good, and there's a lot of clean out that we need to do because with that clean out, and when you have like the vegetables that are dying on the beds, that's where these little predators want to be at because they eat and suck the life out. Nothing is perfect, and I don't mind. We go right through the winter with crops that can sustain themselves right here in the greenhouse. And also it's such a nice, comfortable place to come. It's relaxing. When you smell the fresh air, you feel like, you know, when COVID was going on, I remember coming out and I was really sick. And I got COVID during the time where there were so many people that were not making it. And at that time, I was the first one in my household to get it. And it was really just kind of crazy to think that I'm an herbalist, but now I got to work on myself. I didn't go to a hospital, but I had to have faith in my creator, and I did. And I said, I'm going to go out to my garden and I'm going to eat out of my garden every day. And I did. I made herbs and teas. You know, I really wasn't that sick after the third day, but I had a lot of doubt because on the TV there was so much going on and they were showing so much death and fear with the hospitals. But I really comforted myself because I felt grounded. I would ground myself out here and I would take in and take part of the plants and just the life. So, you know, even for mental and spiritual purposes, I tell you, a garden is where you flourish. You know, being grounded, being touching the soil, being in contact with what is going to give you life. The scripture goes, life begets life and death begets death. And that is the truth for me. I know that, like I said again, I feel much better when I am in contact with the soil, the earth, the smells, hearing birds and seeing animals, plants, bugs. None of that stuff bothers me. I might get a little skittish a little here and there, but it's part of the cycle of life, and you feel like you're still a person instead of watching all the negativity that we see so much on TV, so much wherever we go. There's shooting, killings, someone being nasty, racist, you name it, we're fighting it. So a place of comfort is already placed in the garden, and that is one of the biggest parts of homesteading. Um, you know, and for me, this is something that I want to share with people because it's changed my life tremendously. You know, the worries, I still have the same problems everybody else has. I didn't say that they went away, but I know one thing. It makes it a lot easier taking care of those things if I come out and take a break and get away from some of the pressures of being on the telephone, the pressures of being what this world tells us we have to be, or just looking at too much TV, you know, too much of idle time in a place where it doesn't give you back. The garden gives back every single time. And you can see the growth and development and changes right through the seasons. You'll see all of that. You'll know exactly what's going on. Now, If it was me starting off with gardening right now, and I would say if you're a person that's an adult, you have small children, you can start off with a mini garden. You can start off with trays. You can start off with a garden right on your counter doing sprouts, you know, and looking at the nature of plants, how they grow, and seeing actually just the whole foundation and how long it takes. Because once you start to document things like this is going to give you a whole new mindset. So, we have to change perspectives because sometimes when we're thinking about all the bills, we're thinking about what the schools are doing, what the news says, what's the new trending job, what people are wearing. It takes us away from being grounded. But when you start paying attention to what the creator has made, plants, that's a whole nother ball game. You start looking at soil and you start realizing who made the soil. It takes off the focus off of yourself, and you want to be able to be better. We open up our garden not just to ourselves but to our family. We open up this garden to our friends, so it even keeps you sociable. You're doing more things than you even realize because now you're not looking at yourself the same way, and neither is your community. And also, it does promote community as well. So for me, I think the garden is a great foundation. And I think homesteading is even better because with homesteading, you learn to respect things that you didn't pay attention to. I mean, who pays attention to saying, well, you got a garden, it's just a garden? It's not. You're learning to respect the plants, you're learning to respect nature, you're learning to respect your creator, and you can see the foundation and the values in it to share with others. And I think that's super, super important, you know. So for me, again, digging in the soil, it brings out the best in me. It makes me feel like, oh, you know what, I can even do more. And it goes back to, like I said, homesteading. Homesteading wasn't a thought on my mind. That just happens to be a label that we gave it, but it's a life. It wasn't called homesteading back in my day. It was just called living and living your life. Everybody was doing that. The whole neighborhood did it. You took care of your life. You took care of your plants. You watered your grass. It started off as something simple as watering your grass. You would see the neighbors waving down the street. You're waving at them. They're waving at you. They're watering their grass. The next thing you would know, you can smell someone. As a kid, you could smell when someone was cooking a pot of greens, and we would talk about it. They're cooking a pot of greens. You would know when the person, maybe 3 houses down from you, they had chickens, and oh, they told you they just actually slaughtered one of the chickens, but it was for a meal. So kids have the understanding too. The children realized that this was a source of a food source, not just a pet, but this was a food source. A bull. Oh. A cow. This is a bull. It has horns. Yep. Now, when we feed them, you can just put a little bit in there like this on the ground. And do the bottom way so they won't get your head. Under here. Like this. And you want a little bit like this, do it like that. My hand in there. See, he just ate it. Watch Jeremy. Ooh. Okay, don't forget it. Okay. Put it down on the ground then. As you go. So that way he won't get your hand. Okay? You can put it on the ground in there. There you go. Okay. Because he will take it out your hand. See, watch this. Let me get a little bit here. Watch this. Okay. For their need to survive. And in homesteading, that's what you do. You learn survival skills. We look at that like that's something terrible. Oh, that's terrible. Something has to die in the plant or animal kingdom for you to live. So that's not being mean, or that's not being, we fall out over anything now at this point. So, I mean, either you're just going to suck in some air and die, So we have to get real with ourselves. And then when our children see us in a believable state, this is a lesson plan. This is a schooling education back to even homeschooling, because you're now giving them the values, because the world can't give that to them. They can't give that to them, and only you and only us. If we start leading our children down a new path to realize the respect that goes into this homesteading, the respect that goes into a home, and your home is what you're steadying. And that home begins with you, your body, your mind, mentally, physically, and spiritually, what you're doing, you know. And again, I don't think we would have so many people that were frustrated with life, feeling hopeless because they're not doing anything. We become consumers and we're not putting anything in. But with planting and in gardening, and even figuring out what you can grow that's going to bring you life, you're going to put into that just as much. So I'm going to take a moment and grab a few more plants over here, and then I'm going to come back to you. So we're going to talk about practicing. You've heard the saying, practice makes perfect, and that is true. So homesteading is not just something that you do overnight. And once again, every day, effort is demanded for that blessing to be received. You know, as I said, there's things dying out. We have things dying out over here now because this season is over with. Turmeric, basil, and these plants may not look like, well, they're not doing that well, but the purpose was served. I planted a bunch of plants over here from seed, and all of these plants now are, well, not, I wouldn't say all, but the majority of them are coming up, and they're ready to either be transplanted or either spaced out. Once I take this out, they're going to get plenty of sunlight. But what I wanted was a bed to be able to have extra food for the season that's coming up. And I have these located all over these garden beds, and I'll show you other locations too. But it was like an incubator tank. And you're going to find that out in homesteading, that everything that you want to do for tomorrow has to be planned, and it could be planned for today. So what you want to do for the spring, you're not going to wait for spring to come. You're going to start these processes and practices now. And that's why we have an abundance. And that's why we still have everything that we need for all the seasons, because it's called preparation. Preparing for a garden is one thing, but I remember when we used to prepare for a garden and say, I want to have a spring garden. You're just not going to walk out to the garden in March. And depending on your time zone and what zone you live in, you know, we're in zone 9 here. But if you wait till March to start deciding on a garden, May, you're going almost into the summer. And so your spring plants are not going to thrive because the heat will be too intense. So preparation for what you want to plant, how you want to plant, how long you want, and depending on the seed types that you have, the germination stage, what zone do they go, the hardiness of it. That's one thing. And then another thing is looking over the areas of where you want to plant. So, you know, we all say, I want that big farm. I want that big homestead. Are you really ready for it? Have you tried this? Do you know what it takes? Do you know what kind of soil that you have? Is it clay? Is it muddy? Is it sandy? Does it need any type of special, you know, adaptations to it and amendments to it before you get started? That's counting up the costs. We don't count up the costs on a lot of things in our lives, and then we wonder why we have so many failures. But planning is always good, because if you start out small, you can realize even some plants grow quicker. Some plants are more sturdier depending on the environment. Look at other people's gardens, find out what they're doing in that region and who's been successful with what things. Now, for me, I do not like to deal with hybrid plants, only because I know that everything that comes out of it, even if you get a good harvest one year, you're not going to be guaranteed that the next year, because that plant is not going to come out to be exactly what it should be. The identity of the plant changes because it's not heirloom. So I like to get heirloom seeds and then do seed saving. So everything here, we keep it and we'll let one stalk grow up, and it might look weird in the garden because the garden never really dies out, because we're going to let something go to seed in each crop, and we're going to keep those seeds until the next harvest. So when they flower, then once they flower, the bees get a chance. We give everyone an opportunity. We're an equal opportunity employer. We give the bees a chance. We give the bugs a chance. We give ourselves a chance to get as much as we need. And then once that plant actually dies out, well, like I said, at least one, then we can take what we need, and then we can now replace it with another plant. But when you do that, you're learning to be a good steward over the plants. You're being a good steward over all of the wonderful creations here, that the Creator made. I mean, the bees, the friendly bugs that need their food, and the leaves to survive so they can make their babies for the next year. Yes, we have a lot of predator bugs, but that's part of the process too. There's lizards out here. So there's so much to see and so much to do. And you say, yes, do I want a huge place? Absolutely not. Starting off, jumping into a homestead without having any skills at all, you're just asking for major problems and also a reason to say you can't do it. But you can start small, like I said, with counter gardens. You can start small with patio gardens. You can start small with just a plant in your room and watching it and seeing what area and observing where it needs more sunshine, less water, but you're becoming aware. So you want to raise your skills up that you're aware. You know, now at this time, I'm so aware that knowing that these plants are ready to be moved to a new location. But I wouldn't dare put them in soil, even though that's good soil, without giving them proper nutrition because I'm transplanting them. So I want to give them something more so they can feel at home and comfortable and they can spread out now and their roots will grow fast and give me the kind of yield that I'm looking for through the winter months. It's going to be a lot of more shade coming in, and it's going to be usually in the winter, plants don't grow as fast. But these are cold weather hardy plants, and they are all organic, and these are heirlooms. So again, I expect a nice harvest. You're going to look over right now at some bok choy, and these are all heirlooms too, and they're looking really good. And again, that's from planting. And even with the kale that's over there, this is from the year before. So you'll have some things that you can keep in here from one year to the next. And that's another thing about homesteading. So you want to keep plants in that you can keep for a year or two. I have things that's going back, things that's coming in new, but I'm never ever alone without saying we don't have a plant source and we don't have a food source. We don't have an herb source. Something is going to come up, an illness. I have plants medicinal that I can take from. As being an herbalist, I can take from these plants. I can use these plants and make salves, tinctures, you name it. There are so many levels of homesteading, and all of them are good. So now I'm going to take the time to dig up another batch to take over to my garden bed that I was working in. And there's not a rush for me because I know the sun is out. I'm going to do this probably every day, but I'm taking one garden bed today and I'm working this one out to make sure that it has everything that it needs, because that's the thing. I don't like to rush, and I don't want the plants to be rushed. I want to be able to take my time and move them to a location, do the right thing for them, and I'll move on. And tomorrow is a new day. So I'm going to take these out. And when I'm picking these up, the roots are still very shallow. And it's a good thing about it is because I'm getting the root balls, I'm getting everything that's on them. So I'm going to meet you again back at the place at the other garden bed. So now I'm going to put the remainder of these beautiful plants in this garden bed, and I'm tilling the soil lightly. You know, Paul Gauchi is one of the people that we love to look at as far as being, he's not so much as they call a homesteader. And again, sometimes I don't like using that word because being a good steward is what you want to do. And being a good steward over yourself is very important. Making sure you get the best, you know, to eat, to drink, to think and feel. You know, we get into a plastic world and we're thinking that everything is fast paced, but gardening slows that up for you. If you ever get into gardening and homesteading, you're going to realize how slow your life can be and how enjoyable it can be. Because once again, as I said before, I get such a joy just working in the soil and seeing the composition of the soil and the richness of it, just because when we know we're putting into this, you know. And then working in raised beds is something that's a different, you know, we're older, and anyone can, you can choose your style of planting and growing, but we prefer raised beds because it's not bad on your back, as well as you can also add, and these are open end boxes, and that's something else to talk about. These boxes do not have bottoms. They're just basically trays. We had them made and built, but we're in a neighborhood that has an HOA. So everything that we did it up to par, that it wouldn't just take away. This whole backyard was nothing but gravel when we moved here 8 years ago. Nothing but rocks and gravel. And there was a couple of more big, huge sumac trees. But we had a vision, and when that vision was to turn it to a homestead. The house we had previously, we had a garden. We've always had a garden. I've had gardens since I was a little girl. My husband's had gardens since he was a little boy, and he grew up on his nana's farm. And then my mother and father were avid gardeners right here in Las Vegas, even though they were from the South. And I grew up right here in Las Vegas, was born and raised. So this is something that's been inbred in me, but also training my children and my grandchildren in this way. One of the most important things, the first thing that they do when they get here is they want to run out to the garden.
the thing. I found something.
You did? Oh yeah, that's just the grass solid and
These are good.
rubber chucks.
All sides they are healthy. I found a plant I know.
Okay.
Okay.
Something else?
I know this is my rubber
Okay. Yeah, it's a white face, right? Okay.
Boo boo. Boo boo boo.
Well, large. Alright. What does it smell like? Eggs?
And we can make safe house.
Does it smell real good?
Yeah. And we
How does
can
it smell,
make
Jackson?
it smell like cheese.
Smell like eggs. Okay, who's next? Anybody next? Zion, you want to take some sage and smell it?
Oh.
So wait for real hard. Just pull a leaf, Zion. You know, hurry up and go sage too. You pull this leaf right here. Pull real hard. Okay, smell it. Tell people what it smells like. Does it smell good?
Yeah.
Yeah. Castings in our hole, huh?
Yeah. Okay, Cuddy. I'm gonna go drain for some worm castings in your hole, but
Yeah,
only half of that. I'll put in here, okay?
Give me one of these.
Yeah, get you one of those, huh?
Good job. Okay, that's
Those
enough.
forks.
All right, now you're gonna take your plant.
Yeah.
Journey's about to take our plant and put it in there. Take your plant out the pot. Hold it up like this.
Good job, Harlow.
Pull it out. So empty it in your hand. Put your little hand like this.
Journey's about to put worm castings in our hole, huh?
Yeah. I'm coming, Cuddy. I'm gonna journey for some worm castings in your hole first.
Yeah,
only half of that. I'll put in here, okay?
Give me one of these.
Yeah, get you one of those, huh?
Good job. Okay,
Those forks.
All right, now you're gonna take your plant.
Yeah.
Journey's about to take our plant and put it in there. Take your plant out the pot. Hold it up like this.
Good job, Harlow.
Pull it out. Okay. So empty it in your hand. Put your little hand like this.
Journey's about to put.
They grab green onions. They can identify them. They can identify herbs, and they know the ones, the one that they know that stings them. They'll go over to the stinging nettle and they don't touch it because they know what it will do. But they love purslane. They love the fact that they can actually dig around, and they have little shovels on the tree. They know their little equipment, their watering cans, and they get busy, and it's so amazing to see kids play and have fun doing something that they can actually get into and their minds can unleash all of the creativity. And it's not even a toy. It's not a toy. It's not something that you had to go and make for them and construct and keep them entertained. We don't have to keep them entertained. They get out here and they're running around, and I'm homesteading. I'm doing what I'm doing and making things, and they want to participate. There's not one that does not want to help. The first thing they're saying is, Nana and Papa, can we help you? Can we help you? Or can I do this? And then they go and taste all of the things, and they love to walk around. And it's funny, you can't get kids to eat fresh vegetables. They like to pick them right from the garden bed and eat them.
What's she doing now?
Okay, so she's getting ready to put down little worm castings in here.
Okay.
And Harlow, you can use your hand. Look at Nana. So you can do like this, okay?
Okay.
Because you got to use this over the whole box. I'm going to set it right here, okay?
Okay.
So you can get it.
Okay, that's good.
Is that good? You don't have to be very deep, okay?
Okay, that's good.
Yeah, it might be a little too deep.
Not deep, look.
That's okay. Look, you can sprinkle this, and then I'm going to smooth it all out, okay?
Okay, I just put it right.
Yeah, so just sprinkle all of this all over. You already said it's rich, but you can hold it if you want to. Isn't that amazing how just because they're involved and there's connectivity going on, they're connected to the soil, they're connected to the plants, and there's a respect for them. I've seen kids sometimes just tear through and see plants and just tear them and tear the leaves, and you're looking at them cringing, but that's because they haven't been exposed to this life. So I think that's one of our duties and jobs as parents, grandparents, homeschoolers, homesteaders, is to develop the respect for the land. All of the indigenous people had respect for the land, and they had respect for this land, this earthen vessel that we're in. And we've lost that. And that's something that needs to be reclaimed, because in that becomes order. And that order in our society is so long gone. You know, my mission is to make sure, as a teacher, educator, author, I owned a preschool for over 40 years. I've been homesteading, like I said, the majority of my life for over 4 decades, that this is the information that needs to get back to our children. I think about Proverbs 22:6, train up the child in the way that they should go. And even when they are old, they will not depart from that. You know, my mind fell on the fact we are the children. And your age, you are that child. I'm that child. So it's never too late to start. As long as you're vertical and you have life in this body, we are expected to do something. So I'm not the person to sit on the sideline and say, oh, I can't do it. As long as I'm here and there's breath in this body, I would rather be found, what our Creator said to do, found doing. So we're being found doing what we do, and we do it well. And it's such an advantage physically, spiritually, mentally, psychologically, and all of the advantages show in our health. There's been so many things going on in my life with people with health challenges, and myself, I've had things in my past. This is not the video for it, but I'm going to share those stories with you. I'm going to share some information with ebooks, but also more than that, in this community, I want to know what you want to see. I want to know what it is that you want to learn about when it comes to homesteading, because this is all about homesteading. What it is, what level you're at, how you want to get started, and even perhaps write a plan for you, just personalized to where you are, so you won't have to try to figure out how to jump into it, since someone has been doing it for quite a long time. There's lots of methods of it, and I'm going to tell you something. Most of them work if you work it, but you just got to be able to get that plan and figure it out and say, oh, I do have the will. Getting the time and making sure that you make that time is going to be the most important thing, because you don't want to start and then not finish. And you don't want to start and then feel bad and say it's not for me, because you set yourself up for failure. I want to set you up for success, because I know you can do it. I don't do this on my own. Joshua says we can do all things through him that gives us the strength, and he does give me strength daily, and I ask for it. I take it daily and I ask for it, because that's my foundation. That's what makes me feel like wanting to get up another day, is taking this little plant and watching this little plant multiply and increase and turning into a major powerhouse food source for my family, for myself. Gives me great pleasure in that. And I don't have to worry about someone saying it's E. coli. It's this. I was devastated just this morning. The organic carrots at all of the places. And mind you, they said organic. They have this issue. So, if you can't trust other people, trust yourself and trust that you can do this. Start small, make a plan, be diligent over the plan, and if you need help on the plan, know it's available. It's just a couple of steps away. But I'm going to leave this conversation, because I'm going to be finishing this little area right here. And I'm going to ask you, if you like this type of content today, be sure to make comments and tell me what you want to know about with homesteading. Everything about homesteading is like I'm an old library. There's not a black and white, but we can figure it out together. Take care. So there's a little bit more to this story, and it was a cliffhanger that I want to leave you with. Do you go outside and not have the right attire on? Plants are the same thing. They need an attire, right? Guess what that is? Their covering is wood chips. These are sequoia wood chips, and there's all different types, but they have to be dressed for winter. We can't leave plants out here and then think that they're supposed to survive temperatures below 35, 32, and now we're really upset and we're stressed out because guess what? We forgot to dress our plants. They're doing just fine right now because the temperatures are not that low, but if we want these plants to grow sturdy and be healthy and stern and get big and do the things they need to do, we need to supply them with the wood chips. They have the nutrients, they have the soil, they have the sunlight. They're going to be covered in a tent, and you'll see that too. But they need these wood chips, and so we need to carefully put these wood chips around the plants. And it's okay if all of this leaf is broken, but they're still there. If all of the plants are not all the way showing, and I'm going to dress that around each plant because this is the insulation that's needed for the plant to keep it nice and covered and warm. The whole earth has a covering. And when we look at nature and do what nature is doing, you don't go anywhere without seeing nobody's out there with blowers and digging up all of the trees, the leaves and the dead stuff. It drops its leaves every year and it serves as mulch and protection for every plant. So when we're doing gardening, we need to mimic nature and we need to cover our plants and the soil so your plants don't freeze and they have the protection that they need, that they can continue to send their roots out and get nutrients and grow strong plants. So these plants in your planting is never finished. And by the way, this is for every season, not just for the winter. The same thing happens in the spring and in the summer when you plant. You want your plants to be able to get the nutrients. These also serve to keep the soil moist because it continues to allow the plant to take up moisture from these wood chips. And then these wood chips also break down into the soil and give the plants more nutrients, mulch. So it's a process, the circle of life. So I'm finishing these plants with their covering, like putting icing on a cake. But this is from our creator. I didn't come up with this. Same thing that he does in the forest and in the fields. There's no people out there supplying leaves. They drop from the trees and they then go back to the ground and they produce life. Same thing here. So we're mimicking the creator's job. We just have to keep doing it and making sure that we understand that's who's in charge. He just made us the stewards. So with this information, I wanted to supply to you. And once again, if you have questions, answers, I'll be giving. Take care.